Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tanked Up. We are the now self-proclaimed world's best transatlantic craft beer and video game podcast. I say transatlantic because I am joined this week by the returning Aadil Koji.
Hello.
How are you, man?
I'm good. I'm native Nova Scotian now.
Nice. Settled back in?
Yeah. Well, more like settled in. We had moved sort of 3 weeks before I came to Bristol last time.
Yep.
And didn't have really a house. It was mostly boxes and stuff, and so have an office set up now. You know.
Nice. Someone to podcast from?
Yeah. Although I'm actually in the basement because our internet is absolutely shoddy. Upstairs.
Fair enough.
It was fine yesterday
Nice.
when we were Skyping, but today I could barely download anything faster than 78 kilobytes a second.
Oh dear.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what you want.
How am I supposed to load my iMac with all kinds of games if I can't download
Yeah, man,
them?
kills your gaming. You may notice that it is just I, Ben Nother, on my lonesome in Bristol today. We're not joined by Alex. He's just busy. If you'd listened to last week's episode, you'd know that we're finding it more and more difficult to find time to game and to podcast.
Yeah.
Just because life is so busy. You finding that, Adil?
Yeah.
Is life just too busy?
Pretty much. It's the same reason why I wasn't on last week's podcast.
Exactly. Scheduling difficulties. Right, let's get into it. We're going to drink some beers and talk about some games that we've been playing over the last, I think, 2 weeks now. But because Adil and myself are in different countries, we're going to be drinking different beers. So it's a little bit different this week. We're not all going to be sharing the same beer and discussing it. We're just going to give you a very swift rundown of each of the beers that we're drinking. So Adil, why don't you let us know what you're drinking first?
For sure. First up is the Shock Top Belgian Whit. It's a Belgian-style white beer from the Shock Top Brewery, which is from St. John's, I believe, or is it Halifax? I should have done my research.
Local-ish?
Local, yeah, Eastern Canada, which in Canadian brewing standards, if it's the province, it's considered a local brew, pretty much.
Okay. Nice. Well, I'm going to start with a signature brew, Vienna Lager. We had a signature brew in the last podcast. I believe it was an IPA, the Backstage IPA. And Alex and I thought it was quite coppery. So I'm wondering if this will be any different just to a standard Vienna Lager as well, whether it's got that metallic-y taste to it as well. We'll see. I'm going to get this back open. Ooh. Sounds good.
My beer did not open with as loud of a fanfare, unfortunately.
No, it's almost in stereo now. Not in stereo. What am I talking about? It's an echo. As two beers are opened.
Only
This
zero will remain.
It smells good for a lager. It smells very light.
Get a huge hit of a nice citrus, particularly lemon, which most people like to throw orange in their white beers, so it's sort of nice to have it. I will say that they mention on the label that it's brewed with coriander, orange, lemon, and lime peel. But I think the lemon stands out the most on the nose.
Yeah, I mean this Vienna Lager is almost like a standard sort of not a standard lager, but it's very light. It's quite delicate. I'm not getting sort of any fruitiness or anything like that. But there's a slight bit of, do I think there's a slight bit of lemon there? Maybe.
Or is it me saying lemon enough times?
Could be. Tastes good, though.
Excellent.
It tastes very good. Right, so we shall start, I think, this week with you, Aadil, because I've only played the same game that I talked about in the last podcast. So massive!
Fair enough.
But yeah,
I'll
let you begin.
I'll say this about Shock Top. I'm completely wrong. It's from St. Louis. Not Eastern Canada.
Okay.
Whoever introduced me to Shock Top, which is quite popular here in Nova Scotia, just told me it was local, and I assumed they weren't lying to me, which apparently they were. So Shock Top, a St. Louis beer. They do a bunch of different ones, and it being the summer, the Belgian Whit is sort of the one that they are actually pushing on their website and advertising.
Nice,
anyway,
nice. A summer beer then.
Yeah, I will sort of. I think the first game I'll discuss is a game I didn't really get to play.
Okay.
So coming home involved me to an actual partially unpacked house meant that previously in Halifax, my main gaming computer was in storage, and so I was gaming off of boot camping my iMac. And then in Bristol, I was boot camping my MacBook Air. And now I have my Windows PC, an actual gaming PC once again.
Nice.
And so I was one of the people who I wait for PC versions of Grand Theft Auto games. I think I mentioned previously that I had tried putting GTA 5 on my MacBook Air and it just wasn't worth it. Well, now I have my more beefy PC, and lo and behold, it was downloading so slowly through the Rockstar install service that it predicted 3 days, and over 48 hours of me trying to make it work, I had to continuously keep my PC running. Plugged into my router. It's still getting about 300 KB per second, and it kept disconnecting, and I'd have to reconnect it, and Windows Update restarted my computer, and then I tried to restart the download, and that caused the whole thing to crash every time.
Oh, really?
Yep. So then I uninstalled GTA, the installer and everything, reinstalled it.
Just start again.
And started again, and it didn't even need to be rebooted this time. It just needed to disconnect and crash once, and then it would crash from then on.
Oh, man.
And so, over the course of a week, I tried to get this freaking game installed, and it just was insanely difficult.
So I've had no success at all.
I have it now on my computer, and I've played the first mission. Where you're Franklin and you chase your friend.
Okay,
down, and then you report to Dude Guy. Oh, and I got a haircut. Oh, this is the best part. So I went to complain, to support, that I cannot install this game. It installed on a MacBook Air, no problem, but somehow it can't install on an actual gaming PC.
Is this the same copy, the same version?
Yeah, because I had it through Rockstar Social Club, and guess what?
Yep.
My Rockstar Social Club account got hacked, and there was a guy named Lucio43. He had changed my name, which apparently you can only do once per Rockstar account. Changed my username, leveled my character from level 2 to level 14. Spent all my pre-order bonus money. And joined a guild, or whatever you call the gangs in GTA 5, called Evil.
This sounds horrific.
Yeah, so I had to first.
Apart from the free leveling up, that's not too bad.
Now, I don't mind plot. I kind of like plot, and apparently most of the plot in GTA Online is in the early levels because it's teaching you the game. Also. He bought an apartment which has a 10-car garage. Isn't the one I would have picked, but I guess that's what I'm stuck with. And at least he didn't squander the money in stupid ways. He definitely bought some tardy outfits.
Just he bought loads of T-shirts.
Yeah, corsets. Like I chose to play as a redheaded woman, because that sometimes is what I do. Mostly because I was missing Catherine when I started playing GT Online on Alex's Xbox, and they upgraded the account on my MacBook, and then discovered it was just not worth it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's gone from a little bit creepy to slightly sweet. Playing as a red-headed woman, that's quite a turn there.
Yeah, so that was weird. So I got that resolved. Although then I started pestering them, so I had to get my account back before I could even run the installer. So that was the pre stuff, and then I couldn't. Then I couldn't install it. I don't even remember what I did. It was a whole bunch of Oh, that's what it was. I had to unplug all of the things. The generic help template. So apparently everyone had problems in day one of the patch. Downloading at a slow pace and having this crashing problem, and that all got fixed. So none of the solutions to the exact same problem made sense because it wasn't day one anymore.
Sure, and that patch had already come through.
And then their generic template, like boilerplate email, that said, "Please disable all of the things. Like, take out any USB device that's not a mouse and keyboard. Then go into your sound card settings and set it to 44,000 kilohertz or whatever, instead of 48, which is the Blu-ray. So set it to CD quality instead of above. So no HD for you."
So you had to go through loads of different issues to try and get it resolved, and this was just from a standard email.
And this standard email was like, "Try this," and I'm like, "Okay." And then I started installing, and somehow unplugging USB devices, changing my sound card default, made the installer. I didn't even have to uninstall it; it just started running fine, and
Really?
it downloaded at about 2 megs per second.
Oh right, so it all sorted itself out.
Sort of, but now I'm loath to use high definition output on my computer because I don't know if GTA will just blow up in my face.
Oh man! So did Rockstar sort of also resolve all of the issues with the account and things?
Yeah, they did. They did. It took a little bit of verification, but I had all the answers, etc., and I had control of the email address because luckily they hadn't changed that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
sounds like a trial.
Yeah, and then I sort of played it a bit, was satisfied. First person mode looked cool, and then I was like, okay, I'm just sort of tired of dealing with GTA. Plot-wise, so I log into the character and it's someone else's character on GTA Online, and then the plot, I'm hours and hours behind what me and Alex did on the Xbox, and it's like, it's become a grind. It was a grind to even install. So I suspect it'll be a couple weeks and then I'll get back into it. But
yeah, mate. Do you think that they released? Obviously, they had to spend time, as they did, going from previous generation 360 and PS3 going up to the next gen of consoles. They had to port that across. Do you think that with them having to take all of this time to port it from whichever console version they then did into a PC version, it's just too late? And as you say, you're sort of burnt out on it. You've already spent time with it. I mean, it's a game that's been out for 18 months now. I know, was it about three months ago it came out on PC?
Less than that. It was supposed to come out 3 months ago. It only actually came out mid-April, I think. So, just under 1.5. Because they kept pushing it back, because they weren't ready. And then to have the day one issues that they ended up having is sort of really unfortunate after 3 pushbacks or whatever.
Sure.
And the only real difference outside of porting, feature-wise, is that first-person mode, and that was pushed to the PS4 and the Xbone as well. It's odd given that all machines are basically the same architecture now.
Yeah, that's very true.
That the porting, given that the PS4 and the Xbone have been out for long enough, the porting took that long.
Yeah, it did seem like it's from the way that everything's described in terms of architecture on the new consoles and for PCs and things. It seemed like it did take a while for them to be able to get it over, but I suppose there's lots of issues that not being a game developer or programmer that I don't understand that probably arose and stopped them from being able to release it any earlier. So
yeah, my problem with that is all the other developers seem to manage to port have either simultaneous or a couple months staggered PC release on the new next gen consoles. Like we're not seeing that much of a difference. Like Witcher 3 came out basically the same time, didn't it?
I'm not sure. I believe so. Yeah, I think it came out the same day on PS4, Xbox One, and PC. So yeah, I think it all released at the same time. Even sort of all the digital downloads as well. I don't know what sort of Rockstar's not excuse as such, but reasoning is for a staggered release.
Well, they've
maybe it just comes down to team size and things like that. But Rockstar are quite a big developer, I think. So
yeah, I don't think they see the point of PC gamers. Is the big problem?
Yeah, it could be
because I don't know if you heard. They backpatched through Steam San Andreas, one of the version updates. Because when they released the greatest hits or something for Xbox 360, they had lost the license to some of the songs.
Oh right.
And so they had a limited soundtrack, and then for no clear reason, they pushed that version to the PC as well, taking songs off of your computer that were already there and legitimately purchased, because when you bought the game, you had license to the songs.
Yeah, you've got the license to the songs, yeah.
And presumably, if they could no longer sell them, you shouldn't take it away from someone who had it the day before. And at the same time, they pushed. There was some problem with widescreen as well. Like there was a couple technical problems, things that they did for the Xbox version that just broke things on the when they pushed it to the PC, and so a bunch of the mods don't work anymore.
Right.
And San Andreas was the first big mod community game for them.
They've sort of cracked down, or so I hear. They cracked down a little bit on some of the mods for GTA 5 on the PC version.
Yeah, that was sort of what I was getting to, which was that if you have a modded version, you will be banned from GTA.
Just straight up banned.
Straight up.
Wow! So you can only mod the single player game.
Sorry?
Or you can only use mods in the single player game.
Yeah, but apparently if it checks to see for modifications and just outright bans you.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I heard about this a week and a half or so ago, so I don't know if they've changed, if they've weakened it, but they basically said modders aren't welcome on GTA Online.
I mean, it's quite possible with all of the backlash with Steam and paid mods and things like that. People want to mod their games. They want to have the ability to be able to do that. And a lot of people complained about having to then pay for a lot of these modification, whether it's sort of buying different texture packs or things for games. People didn't seem to like it, so maybe sort of Rockstar or Take-Two, who are the parent company, just realised that people want to mod games. They want to have that option to be able to do so, and that's the whole reason for bringing it out on PC almost, so people are able to then play with the game.
Oh yeah,
to change the experience.
Like there's a mod for San Andreas that I really enjoyed, which basically was almost a total conversion in the sense that you could play as a cop.
Right.
But it had its own LAPD skin. You could check the computer to look people up. It spawned criminals, etc. Like it was a full-on, proper, not just cool skin or flight power sort of mod that we're used to. And it was really fun. It breathed some life into that game. Oh, maybe it was GTA 4. I can't remember. One of those non-GTA 5 GTAs.
Yeah. It just adds an extra element to it as well, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it really is cool what people are doing. Just Cause 2 on the PC, if you don't have it, there are some stellar mods on that. First of all, that's a fun ass game. Second of all, there's some stupid shit you can get up to because it's basically Sandbox Island GTA or Michael Bay is what I was trying to say. Like it's
yeah. I've played it a little bit. Like I played it on console. I think I played it on PlayStation 3 and enjoyed the game. And then I think there was a Steam free weekend for it. So is that right? Possibly. I played it on my PC and just couldn't get on with the because I don't use a controller on my PC. Just couldn't get on with the mouse and keyboard controls.
Oh, really?
Just found them found them a little cumbersome, sort of trying to, one of the elements that I really liked from Just Cause was the whole idea of the grappling hook. And being able to sort of bomb through the sky and parachute and then grapple hook onto something and parachute and be able to play like that. But I just found it a bit too cumbersome using a keyboard to have to try and constantly switch between doing things.
I mean, I guess most of my gaming has been mouse and keyboard, so I didn't really find that problem. Although now that you mention it, I do remember it took me a while to get good at grapple travel with the keyboard and mouse.
Yeah. I suppose it's something you put enough time into, you're going to get the gist of it and be able to crack on like that, aren't you?
So at the risk of stopping our meandering, why don't we jump to you? What it sounds like you've got a repeat on your gaming plate. What would that be?
I do. I was just thinking, I have already banged through this signature brew Vienna lager.
Fair enough.
So I'm wondering whether it's time for another beer. It quite possibly is for me.
I was going to
say whether
it
is for you, as you've been talking quite a lot about your experiences and horrors with GTA 5.
Yeah. Installing games.
Whether you've been able to catch up. Yeah. So I suppose I shall just describe the beer I'm going to drink.
Sounds great.
It is a Buxton Brewery beer, and it's a red raspberry rye. And underneath that it says Berliner Weiss, which I'm guessing is the hop that they've put in it, possibly. And I think they've just thrown in a load of raspberries at some point in the process, possibly in the kettle while it's boiling up. And I should mention, as I'm opening this beer now, you may have seen that we made some beer.
Yeah, I was going to ask
I,
you guys about
last weekend. Yeah.
So it's
my first experience of home brewing.
Well, go on. I'm sorry I interrupted.
No, it's fine, man. It's fine. Not something that I'd done before, but found it really interesting. It was really good. It took us a while. We managed to get a couple of FIFA games in while it was boiling up as well. But yeah, just really interesting to actually see how all of this excellent beer that I'm drinking is made and the process that you go through to be able to get a beer. So it was good. Alex knows what he's talking about. So,
what hops did you put in, out of curiosity?
Now you're asking. Chinook. Was it Chinook? Or something similar to Chinook, like the helicopter, but possibly not quite. I don't remember what the other ones were. I think what we were trying to do is do something similar to the Brewdog Punk IPA.
Yeah, that's what you tweeted anyway.
Yeah. So sort of Alex sort of knew the recipe or had found the recipe, so we'd sort of tried a little bit to mimic that, I suppose. But I suppose it should be determined whether it is like that in a couple of weeks' time, or even longer than that, in a few weeks' time. Once it's all been bottled or kegged, or however we're going to.
I'm guessing you guys
get it out, I suppose.
Bottle it, and then my experience with the brews using Alex's gear is that we need a few weeks to really age in the bottle.
Yeah.
Because the last batch, us being who we are, we sort of, once it became tasty, sort of bombed through it, and there were only a few bottles on reserve, so to speak. And then near to when I left Bristol, we cracked the last couple, and they were fantastic. I think they were probably the best beer of Alex's made that I've had the privilege to drink. And so I would say try and remind him to wait, because he's a bit like a child at Christmas with his brewed beer. Because he's put the time in, so he's really curious what it tastes like, and then it's drinking the fruits of his labor.
Yeah, definitely. He has mentioned that before, that rather than giving it sort of 2 or 3 weeks in the bottle, he sort of gets to about a week or sort of
week and a half,
10 days, and he's just sort of thinking about it, and it's because it's constantly on his mind how it's tasting. He's like, well, maybe I'll just try one, maybe I'll just try 2.
Yep.
Lets them go day by day, tries another bottle. But so this Buxton Red.
Mm-hmm.
Buxton Brewery Red Raspberry Rye. Smells really good. Very raspberry.
You a big fan of the fruited beers? I can't remember.
So I've not had many fruited beers, only a few, and I'm not a massive. I can't say I'm a massive for fruited beers, but from from what we had left in the Honest Brew box, which is shout out for this week to Honest Brew, they provide all of the beers that I'm drinking today. So that's done. Good. This seemed like one of the most interesting ones there was. And because I'm not a big sort of fruited beer drinker, I thought I would try it. And I like raspberries, so it seemed like a good one to go for.
Excellent.
But it does. It's very... we had a red... I can't remember which one it was. I think it was the Siren Craft Beer, one of their red IPAs. And this raspberry is, I would suggest, a little redder than that was. That was really opaque, it was really dark, so you're only getting a little bit of red around the edges. This is very red, which I would expect from a fruited red beer. So, it's very fizzy. Oh, it's very raspberry. Bloody hell. That hits you straight away.
On the
Quite nice, though.
On the fruited beer front, I don't know if you've ever had the privilege of having a lambic.
No.
Which are Belgian beers, not easy to find unless you happen to have the right sort of liquor store around you. But they tend to be made with wild yeast.
Okay.
And but what's really interesting is normally you sort of add the different tasting things post fermentation. Here they're open fermented with usually raspberries, which is what reminded me, but often other fruits like apricots, and because of when and the amount of fruit that's sort of thrown in, they are distinctly fruity. And I don't like fruity beers. Like one of the most popular beers from the Wild Rose Brewery in my hometown, Calgary, is the Wild Rose Raspberry, which is, people who don't like beers, male and female, everyone's like, oh yeah, I could do with a raspberry. And I just sort of think it's meh. But the raspberry lambic I had was just phenomenal. It's Lambics, lambics. I guess the S is just pluralization. But given that Alex isn't here, I thought I'd throw some random beer fact that I knew it. Worth looking for.
Got to be done, definitely. I mean, with this, it's very... It's like a very fizzy, quite sour, sort of raspberry juice almost. I suppose the sourness is the difference that you get between having a beer versus having just like a raspberry cordial sort of drink,
right?
In sort of like sparkling water rather than still or something. So there's a very slight beer taste, not much. It's not hoppy in any way whatsoever, but I think that sourness just sort of grounds it a little bit. But it's an odd beer.
I'm going to try I know it's local. Well, it's Shelburne, Nova Scotia. Shelburne's not. It's just outside of Halifax. It's called the Boxing Rock Brewery. I'll read you there. So they sell bottled stuff in the Nova Scotia liquor stores, which again is Liquor Control Board stuff. But also at the Halifax Farmers Market, they sell from reusable sort of 1 liter bottles with the like the Hrosch top, metal thing,
like the pop top.
reusable. So you spend
Yep.
$6. You spend $8 on a beer, but then it's only $2 for the content. It's $6 for the deposit. So it's super cheap at the farmers market, buying straight from them, because it's basically just their way of getting things out.
Yeah.
So they say, our beer is legendary. According to local folklore, Boxing Rock is where bickering seamen were left by their captain to sort out their differences. The choice, box until only one could return to the ship or shake hands and share a beer. Either way, there are only a few short hours until high tide. We say drink up. And so the Boxing Rock
Nice.
is actually a thing in Nova Scotia. And that's what they named their brewing company off of. And
Nice. A little bit of local history in there as well. It's always good. It's always good.
And so today it's one of their seasonals. It's the Rule 42 English Pale Ale. It's about 5.3%. That telltale corks popping. Oh, wow. That nose is amazing straight out of the bottle.
Nice. That's what we like. A big nose is always good.
Because it just got popped, I should take a picture. My phone is off for podcasting purposes. I managed to pour a beer mug of about 4/5 head. So it's got this a lovely sweetness coupled with strong, sort of a medium hint malt. That sweetness is like a light fruit, very summery smelling, which isn't what you would normally think of from an English pale ale.
Yeah.
What is that? I can't tell what that fruit is. Very light.
It'll come. You'll figure it out the more you drink, the more you smell it will work its way through. It's when it just clicks in your head. It's very difficult. Like, we've chatted about this before. It's very difficult to describe beer, or at least to sort of the layman and to myself. It's very difficult to be able to pick out those flavours. But you do find that obviously the more you drink, the more you start to recognise certain hop combinations, sort of individual hops, certain flavours that they put in and things like that. So
yeah, I used to just say
the more you drink,
above.
obviously the better you get.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And now
Just
I'm
use
like,
really-
that's lemony.
Yeah, just use really flowery words. Like, it's very delicate.
Yeah.
It's really light.
And
Good.
oh, that's a good beer.
So
It's
nice.
It's got the right amount of hoppy bitterness to classify itself as an English pale ale. So not too much hops, but that bitter coppery aftertaste is definitely there. But again, it sort of whatever that sort of light fruitness is, that's sort of the finish is a little bit deep copper, and then on top of it, this light taste. It's really quite pleasant.
Good. Nice, man. Nice. Excellent. So I am going to discuss The Witcher 3 some more.
Ooh. Do tell.
People who listened last week or in the last podcast episode will know that I'd only played a little bit of this game. I'd only sort of got into the tutorial area, ridden around a little bit, done a few quests, hit a few markers, discovered a few things. So I'm probably now, after the last two sort of, week and a half, 2 weeks, I'm probably about 40 hours into this game now.
Oh, so a fair bit.
Yeah, and it is massive. There's still areas that I've just not discovered yet. As the people that will listen know, but for you at least, Adil, it's an action RPG, very similar in the vein to something like Shadow of Mordor crossed with Skyrim. So you've got that very action combat sort of system, but with a big open world. It's a fantastic game in its storytelling and its depth of character. Things like side quests, even just the small bits of dialogue you get when you go out on a contract to kill a monster. You go up to someone to start the contract off and go up to an NPC to start it off, and they will give you a backstory, which they should do, that about why this monster's out there. Sometimes you go and discover some evidence to suggest what kind of monster that is, so you can then prepare for the battle, go back to that person, they give you a little bit more exposition. But it's not just something that I got from the first couple of contract missions or secondary side missions. Everything is so fleshed out, and it's not repeated, conversations. You're getting great dialogue in all of it. It just really fleshes out the world. And it sort of, it tells because I've spent so much time in it, and I feel like I don't feel like I've barely got anywhere, but I just feel like there's so much more to discover. There's so much more quests to do, so much more story to unravel. Just really, really enjoying it.
Excellent.
But I do have some very minor issues with it, which obviously previously I'd not discovered as such. But the combat could be a little bit better. It's a little bit awkward and a little bit difficult trying to orientate yourself. So it's a third person, so the camera normally hovers just above you, just behind, almost looking at the top of your, or just the back of your head almost. And sometimes that someone's behind you, but you're having to use the twin analog sticks to try and zoom your view around. You're facing them, so suddenly you get a view on screen of Geralt, the character, facing towards the screen. So the camera isn't fixed behind the back of their head. It might be something that I can change. I've not looked into it, and it's not that much of a big issue, but it's just a small niggle that in some battles you sort of get a bit disorientated. I suppose that could almost be seen as a plus, because that may be how you would feel within a small skirmish with several enemies. It's not a massively realistic game, so why that would be brought out as a realistic point, might not actually be a valid reason. But it's a very small sort of niggle. But because it's quite, 50% of the, or maybe not quite 50%, maybe sort of 40% of the game is fighting.
Right.
Sometimes, when 10% of that 40% of your game, so starts to
4% of the game.
Yeah, when 5%, 6% of your game, it gets a little bit awkward and a little bit annoying. It sort of adds up a little bit, and you sort of, after this many hours in the game, I've worked out how to sort of try and spin my camera around as quickly as possible and things like this.
Right. I think that's a huge issue, though. I think it's bigger than we often give credit to, because it seems like a minor point. But like you said, if it's ever present, it's what things like that, which you would hope would be caught in like QA testing, can change a great game down to a good game. A good game even worse, right? The gameplay is why it's not a movie, right? I mean, little gameplay things that are recurrent. So like Mirror's Edge, I super enjoyed, but because of your lack of seeing your feet and the design of a lot of the jumping puzzles, I didn't finish it because there were a couple spots where like I knew I could eventually figure it out, but it's just like, well, I don't want to have to learn how to play this game when it's clearly of a certain type of game that I'm reasonably proficient at with regards to sensitivity to movements, perspective, etc. However, because of the design of the game, I have to rejig the way I play that type of game for this. And sometimes, in certain puzzles, I felt like I was just training myself to do that puzzle, and I couldn't carry that learning forward to other puzzles. Like, it just was a little too... Because you didn't have the precision that the design needed, you weren't really learning how to be precise. You were learning how to deal with this problem. More by rote than learning technique. And that broke the game for me.
Yeah. I suppose it's hopefully this isn't something that impacts a huge amount, and it's not caused me to repeatedly have to fight the same encounter. More than I don't think it's ever been the reason why I've lost an encounter, why I've lost a battle with something, which is good. So it hasn't stopped my progression as such. But it's just a little annoying when you go down to a very minimal amount of health and you have to do something that you wouldn't necessarily have to do because of the mechanic.
Right.
Or because of the lack of... But, yeah, without being pointed towards that, I suppose it does become an issue.
Yeah.
Definitely. But it is still a fantastic game.
Excellent.
And everybody should possibly play it. So
I'm waiting for it to drop a little in price. I like to play list is pretty long, which actually brings me to... so I've got 2 other partially played games. And one bit of news that I wanted to talk about.
Okay, so let's what we'll do is we'll briefly chat about the 2 games that the other 2 games that you've played. We'll hit your news, and then we'll move on to the topic, which I didn't shout out at the start of the episode. But basically we're gonna just have a quick discussion about sequels, or more so, what sequel we would like to see. So if there's a game that we would like to see another iteration of. So we should go back into that a little bit later. So yeah, why don't you crack on, Aadil, with the second game you played?
All right, the second game is a little game by Ubisoft called Assassin's Creed.
Okay.
Notice I didn't say
first one?
Anything else. Yeah. So between hopping around, living in various places with various subpar gaming / gaming apparatus, I should say, apparati, coupled with my neurotic completionism, I've decided, and we'll see how far I get, that this summer will be the summer of franchise plays.
Okay.
So I never actually finished Assassin's Creed 1. I got sort of 4 or 5 cities in, and then I abandoned my computer, and then I got it cheap on Amazon on my Xbox, and played it a bit, and then I actually was almost done Assassin's Creed 1 when about a year and a half ago, and then my flatmate, who is a serious gamer, he's like, oh, that game. He got it on Steam and caught up and finished it, but before I finished the city I had just moved on to, and
nice.
Sort of took the wind out of my sails on that.
Just banged it out.
Well, and it came out to the living room, because that's where my iMac was, and was like, oh yeah, I remember this part. It's like, all right. So I have all but the most recent 2, I think. I don't have Rogue and Unity. All on Steam from various sales, and I thought, at the very least, I should deal. So my Steam list broke 400 sometime in the past month.
Yep.
So
that's a lot of games.
Yeah, and so I put a moratorium on buying games. 1, because I don't have a lot of money, and 2, because this is ridiculous. And so I thought I would start playing through some of them. I can't guarantee I'll stick to a franchise, but I thought I was sort of the ones that I had several iterations of. I would at least start with the first one, and if I got bored, I might move to the next one, etc. Because apparently, Assassin's Creed 2 or 3, I can't remember. 2, no, the pirate one is widely regarded as the best one. And that's
so I've not played which is Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag.
Right.
I've not played that one. I stopped at Assassin's Creed 3 because it was diabolical. However, I really, really liked Assassin's Creed 2 and the 2 games that followed it, Brotherhood and Revelations.
Yeah.
I just for my perchance for Italian classical architecture.
Fair enough.
Those games were fantastic. So not just for that, but also gameplay wise. I mean, the first game's great, but the second game just tightens up the controls. It gives you a little bit more freedom, and it just plays a little bit more better. It's a little bit more interesting, I think, the second game is than the first.
Yeah, I heard that the second was probably the best of the series for Assassin's Creeding, but Black Flag was the most fun, but that's because the piracy stuff was really fun, but it wasn't really assassinating anymore. Is the vibe I've gotten. So those are the two I'm looking forward to, and who knows how long I'll stay at anything in the middle. But so there's that, and then indie games as well. I've got a huge queue of, and so basically my PC is hooked up to the projector in the basement, and that's the beefy thing. So more recent games / older blockbuster games I'll play with all the bells and whistles on there, and then the iMac on when I've got Windows on can play all the indie games, and so. If I talk about an indie game, it's because I've actually been productive at my research. And otherwise, I'll be talking about stuff I did in the basement.
Nice. So, what's the third game that you've played?
Okay, and I've only played about 13 minutes. I was more curious than anything. I'm a big fan of Lego. I really enjoyed my few dalliances with Minecraft. And this week, Lego Worlds came out. It's a persistent galaxy of sort of disc-sized worlds. Minecraft-y. I don't really know. It's in early access on Steam, but it's still about $13. If it wasn't for the fact that it was Lego and I was curious and broke my moratorium in a peak of weakness, I wouldn't know much more about it. It's made by Telltale Games, who does do all of the Lego games, so I at least know that it'll be fairly solid and stable. And I'm just super curious. The trailer, if you get a chance to take a look at it, shows that you can be the cowboy or the explorer, all kinds of things, and you can visit different lands. And I'm just really curious on how that'll be done. The Minecraft-y buildy stuff, that makes total sense, right? Presumably you can break things and make new styles of Lego piece and then build your Lego set if you wanted from life into fake life. And the reason another thing I wanted to bring up was, I don't know if you've heard of Lego Dimensions.
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Yeah, so that's coming out in the fall, and there's a bunch of exclusive sets that apparently all the Lego collectors are super eager for, because there are some sets and minifigs that won't be available outside of Lego Dimensions, and they're all licensed content. Right. So I think they're going to sell. So this is, for those of you who don't know, it's like the. I think we did talk about this a couple weeks ago, maybe. The Disney Infinity 2.0 /
we did.
Skylanders
type game.
Where you can build things and interact with your Lego on your gaming device as well. And so it seems like Lego, not content to be the world's largest and most profitable gaming company as of 2014, are branching into video games in a more strong way, which I didn't think was possible.
Yeah, I suppose it's not just the sort of tie-in franchises now. It's Lego. It's their own sets, their own worlds that they have created,
and so
which are going to be in this, isn't it? So
they had Lego figures, minifigures online, which was a free-to-play so you could be a subscriber or just play regularly. A MMO light type game, which was on Windows. Basically, you had a click, and two abilities which you clicked on, super kiddified, but you basically explored it and did mini quests, etc. In the various Lego worlds, like Castle, Pirates, etc. And they just made that fully free to play this month, and it's apparently the writing is on the wall for that thing, and it sounds like
I suppose it's in anticipation of this new game coming out, I suppose.
Yeah, although it's a different developer, I think, who did Lego minifigures online, and they had tied it to products, so they have their minifigures lineup, which is just collect a series of 16 minifigures from different themes, rocker, vampire, etc., alien, Cyclops will all be in the same sort of minifigure series 12. And series 12 and I think 13 came with codes that you could put in to get that actual toy as a playable character in minifigures online. And so now that's all probably not going to appear. Whatever, I think it's 14. But anyway, so I just thought it was interesting because Lego games are super fun, but they've just been this niche licensed, fun to play with your kids / non-gamer friends, or bash your head against the puzzles for 100%ing, which is actually quite tough. And now they've got this. They're honing in on the Minecraft market and the Skylanders market in the next sort of 6 months. So it's going to be super interesting. My piece of news is that Steam has announced pre-ordering for their hardware, top of which is the Steam controller,
Nice.
which I don't know if you've seen, but it's sort of Xbox styled-ish. It's got a D-pad, an analog stick, 4 buttons, I think a touchpad.
Okay, I've seen a little bit of it, but not much. I seem to remember there's been quite a few iterations of it. It's been sort of leaked and shown, with various screenshots and photos of sort of different versions of it for quite a while now. It's been sort of slated to come out for a little while, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. They also announced Steam Link, which is, I think, their sort of PlayStation Home style thing. So it's
the PlayStation TV style thing where it streams the games straight to your TV. Yeah.
Steam Link allows existing Steam gamers to expand their range of their current gaming setup via their home network.
Nice.
So connect your Steam PC or Steam machine to your home network, plug into a TV, and stream the game to the link at 1080p.
Ooh, that seems, for someone like me who normally just plays console games, plays a few PC games, a few games through Steam. There's a few games which I play with mouse and keyboard, but don't have a controller for. This does seem like a very interesting new piece of tech.
Yeah, between the controller and the Link, which they are selling as a bundle, I think. And those are straight from Valve. Because they also, I don't know when the Steam machines are coming out, but those are all licensed, like Alienware and some other people will have them. It'll come with Steam OS on it with their hardware, and presumably HDMI out only. Made to look like a little set-top box. But with Steam controller and Link, you can play, so things like my Assassin's Creed foray, like that I've got Xbox wireless receiver for my PC, and of course I'm playing Assassin's Creed stuff on my controller because it's awkward and horrible with the mouse and keyboard.
Yeah.
But this
nice.
step takes out that sort of bad, a lot of games are being, because the more money's in the consoles these days, they're being optimized for one type of input. But now, you're getting supposedly a really great controller built into your Steam machine, and you I think they're really trying to say, what's the point of getting an Xbone or a PS4, for those of you who've been waiting, when you can play on your big TV with a controller, not only the new games, but also all the old ones you have.
And just to be able to have a slightly different experience from a mouse and keyboard, small sort of monitor game, to be able to take it to what you're more used to with a console experience, I suppose.
Right.
So it's it's something that someone like me would be very interested in picking up. Definitely. So, shall we move on to our third beer and on to our topic?
Sounds good, yep.
I am going to drink a Beavertown Smog Rocket Smoked Porter. And with all the Beavertown beers, it's in a can.
Excellent.
And that's what you get. I don't know whether you're ready to drink your third beer yet.
Oh,
I am
definitely,
moving
yeah.
forward. Ooh, this is good. I do like a porter.
Me
Which I suppose why I chose it as my last beer. So, it's very dark, as you would expect. Ooh, that's good. That's got a very good nose.
What's it like?
It smells like a porter.
Yeah, fair enough.
Don't get much more from it. It's very sweet. I'm going to wait because I did what you did earlier, and there's a little more head than there probably should be. So I'm going to allow it to settle slightly before I taste it. What's the third beer you're cracking onto, man?
I'm drinking the Hops and Bolts from Mad and Noisy Brewing. Their tagline is.
Is that one a local beer?
No, I don't believe so. It was on clearance at the liquor store, to be honest. So
nice.
I've never seen Mad and Noise before.
So it's new for you.
Yeah. It is in fact. Where are they? Creemore Springs. Oh, it is Canadian. It's Ontario, though, it looks like. So their tagline is "Not for the faint of hops."
Nice.
And the Hops and Bolts is an
That's good.
India Pale Lager.
Okay. So something a little bit different.
Yeah, I thought I'd give it a try.
Good.
So they say they've riveted together the best components of a European lager, a West Coast IPA, and a classic English pale ale to build an intriguingly bitter yet malty hopped up brew.
Nice. I know when we had a Beavertown in the last episode, which was the India Stout, and that sort of had a few elements of something like an India Pale Ale, but with the stout. Obviously, a lot more coming through from a stout, but you get a little bit more flavour. It did sort of have a slight flavour of something like an India Pale Ale last week. So yeah. I've never really had a mash-up beer before, where you're almost getting sort of two styles.
Yeah, so it's a nose is not like an IPA at all. I don't think they did the secondary hopping that usually gives that sort of huge hoppy aroma. It's actually got a very, very flat nose. It's almost not there. Well, it might be because I still have the very strong Rule 42 in my system.
Yeah. Just takes over a little bit.
Oh, interesting.
Has it got a good taste?
It does. It's interesting. I'm gonna oddly start it. The finish is sort of malty, with a little bit of hoppy bitterness lingering, but not sort of your standard. Like if it's an IPA, you'd usually have that. The finish is sort of lasting for 10-15 seconds, that strong hop.
Yeah.
Doesn't have that. It is quite, it's definitely a lager in terms of carbonation. Like, it's quite bubbly, and that sort of opens up the taste in a very unique way.
Nice.
I would say, the Indian Pale hoppiness sort of comes and goes. It doesn't really stay with the beer as it normally would in an IPA. Like,
yeah.
So it's got this sort of light, airy character, and then it sort of starts like, "Hey, there's some hops here," and then it finishes with, "Hey, this has been malted."
Cool. Yeah. You sort of, I suppose, you get a little bit of each. One style maybe taking more preference than the other.
Mm-hmm. But it definitely ends a little sweeter than an IPA would as well. I would say if you were in IPA training, this would be a good step 2.
Nice. That sounds good. This Beavertown, the Smog Rocket smoked porter, I'm getting a lot of smoke. It's very dry, and it's quite sort of. It does seem quite smooth, but it's quite thick. So it's almost, I suppose, syrupy would be the best way to do the best way that I know how to describe it. But it's really, as the name would suggest, it is very smoky, which is nice. It's really good. It doesn't have, a lot of porters have sort of a sweet element, or at least the few porters that I've tried have that sweet element to them. And this does, but it's not overbearing. It's very light in terms of its sort of sweetness. And you're getting a lot more of a sort of a harder, sort of smoked and dry sort of taste to it.
Sounds quite good.
Excellent. So we shall move on to our topic. And our topic this week is sequels, and what sequels we would like to see. Sequels that obviously haven't been made. The reason we're talking about this is because XCOM 2 and Fallout 4 have just been announced. Sequels that are very anticipated, especially for me, XCOM 2, as I really liked XCOM Enemy Unknown. So we shall start with you first, Aadil.
I sort of pondered about this quite a bit, and one of the problems I have is a lot of AAA games are just continuations of a series that maybe doesn't have the legs anymore.
Yeah.
And then there's like some indie darlings like Thomas Was Alone, which just sort of worked great and ended well, and there's no real point of revisiting it. But I think it got me to thinking of sort of what are the kinds of franchises where I welcome these types of things. And I thought it made me think almost immediately of RPGs like Zelda and Final Fantasy, where with Zelda it's basically the same, except for a couple standouts. It's the same story told in a slightly different universe. And I really like that idea of tweaking the world and the gameplay such that it's the same, like instead of pivoting on sort of like in Assassin's Creed, it's the same world but a different time period and there's new gameplay mechanics. This is like, it's the same narrative but with the world shifted in Zelda, and I really like that approach. So something like the Max Payne series, which is sort of off the rails now. It does, because they're trying to keep making Max and that universe go through a bunch of shit.
Yep.
And it just doesn't make sense. Similar to Far Cry's done it a lot better, but I think those franchises which were near and dear about, just under 10 years ago are still going, but in a really flubby way. I think that's this, like, I'd rather see Max Payne where the story has the same Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, but the details are different, and some of the gameplay is different, and the engine's different.
Okay.
I really enjoyed Max Payne 1, the noir story. I liked the setting. It was really cool to have bullet time for the first real solid way, but the subsequent entries in the series didn't really do it for me, but I wouldn't mind going through the same basic story with even a guy named Max Payne, but, the actual gameplay and the world are novel enough that it doesn't just feel like a remake, like an HD remake.
Sure, so you're looking for something more akin to the first Max Payne game.
Yeah.
Yeah, something a bit more noir, something that tells a story in a very specific way, Max Payne 3 was, I really liked Max Payne 3, Max Payne 2 was good as well, but unlike the first games, I thought that they fell down on their story, really. They didn't have that hook.
That's exactly what I mean by it falling apart. It just sort of was like, it doesn't work. Like, the character arc was written well, and now you're shoehorning him into a world, and you're shoehorning the character and the world to try and justify the sequel. I mean, that's exactly the wrong way of doing things.
Yeah, definitely. Nice, yeah, I'd agree with that. That's definitely something different. I know there's a game which is called, I believe it's called White Knight, which has very recently come out, which is not not like a Max Payne game, but is in a very noir sort of style. It's all about moving through a house and light and discovery and being able to get through different ghostly puzzles, I believe. But that seems to come across as being a very noir type story. Not something that I've played, but something that I would play, I think. But yeah, I can definitely see we don't have very many games that have that sort of noir style. Even the first game was quite comic booky as well.
And I
you
really
don't get a lot of
Sorry?
Yeah, you don't get a lot of games now that do that either. It definitely had a very unique take on how to tell its story. Yeah, that's good. Very
How about
good.
yourself?
I think the game that had a massively lasting impact on a lot of the games that I play now, and something that we haven't seen a direct sequel to, but you can tell where the gameplay mechanics from them have been taken out of them and put into other games, is a game called Vagrant Story, which was a PS1 game, like 15 years ago, made by Squaresoft, as The Witcher 3. It's an action RPG. It's almost a third-person sort of camera. It's got some great battle systems. It's got great sort of puzzle and platforming sort of elements, but it's really the story and the world that dragged me into that game. And as I said, you can see some of the mechanics, sort of like the battle systems, being used in other games. So Vagrant Story came out, I suppose, at a very similar sort of time to, I think, Final Fantasy VIII. Both made by the same developer, but it takes it's trying to be on that same sort of level. It's trying to have that same sort of world building element as something like a Final Fantasy game. It's got great twists. It's got a good plot. The characters are quite well fleshed out. It's got interesting encounters, interesting bosses, interesting monsters. The standard soldiers that you fight normally, with some of them have a little bit of dialogue before you get into the encounter with them. And you can see how some of those mechanics have transposed into the later Final Fantasy games, like 13. So you see the enemies rather than it being a battle that you're then transported into, as with sort of the earlier Final Fantasies. And for such an early game in sort of the 2000s on the PlayStation 1, it looked really good as well. The graphics were very, or much more akin, I suppose, to a little bit more blocky, but a little bit more akin to something like Metal Gear Solid. On the PlayStation 1, rather than the very blocky sort of Final Fantasy 7. It was almost that Vagrant Story almost seemed like that step between Final Fantasy 7 and Final Fantasy 8 graphics wise. But it just drew me in a little bit more than sort of the Final Fantasy games. And we just haven't had there hasn't been a successor to it, even though, as I said, the mechanics have been ripped apart and sort of picked for various different games that you then get, whether it's the sort of the real-time battle system. It's got a way in battle where you can specifically target different, you can target their limbs, their body, or their head.
Oh, wow.
They do different damage dependent on what you're which one you've targeted. Each of them have different, their hands or their arms, their legs, their body have different armor values. So depending on what weapon you're using, it might be able to damage them better by aiming somewhere different with that type of weapon. And it was quite in-depth in that sort of stuff. And you get sort of, this in-depth sort of ideas from various games. Things like The Witcher sort of go in-depth with customization of, putting on different armor sets and the weapons that you can use and things like that, that most RPGs bring along. But yeah, Vagrant Story is definitely something that I would like to see another one too, not just because of the mechanics, but because of the world as well, which was really engrossing. And as I said, had really well fleshed out characters. So yeah, something that maybe not a lot of people have played, because it was outshone quite a lot by the Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8, which I believe came out either side of when Vagrant Story came out. So
would you want to see a sequel in the same a sequel of the characters, something in the same world, or like a remake?
So I think I'd rather see something in the same world. The game, from what I remember, the game ends on there's various twists within the last sort of portion of the game, and the game ends quite ambiguously, with the main character sort of wandering off into the sunset, carrying the antagonist in tow as such. So you're left with a lot of questions, and it's left quite open at the end. And they could very easily do sort of the next chapter as such, but I think I'd like to see another story within that world, just because it was so well presented and so well fleshed out.
Right. Excellent.
So yeah, Vagrant Story. If you've got a PS3, I think there is a re-release of it as a digital download as a PS1 classic.
It is a PS1 classic, playable on PSP, PS Vita, and PS3. I may have done a quick search while you were talking about it. It is $5.99
Not something
Canadian.
you played then? Not something you played?
No, you piqued my interest, because that was, I think, a really sweet spot of JRPGs was the PS1. That's sort of also when I really got into JRPGs. I hadn't really played the Final Fantasy games until friends had PlayStations. When I was young, I was given a copy of Final Fantasy 1 on the Nintendo Entertainment System. But I was much too young to understand, and so me and my sisters, we played FF1, got to the first boss, and just died, just got decimated. And we didn't understand the idea of, like, okay, the plot has taken us here, but we're not ready for here, so we need to go and fight random. We need to grind in the forest until we're strong enough to kill this boss who kills us in each character in 2 hits or less. So we're just like, well, this game's impossible. Done. Shelf it.
Yeah, I think it happens a lot when you're younger with games that you pick up, which are a bit too complex almost for the age that you're at. So a lot of older games that sort of we've played seem almost like you've just sort of you've played a little bit of them, and you've just sort of, as you say, you've just shelved them, and you've sort of never gone back to them. And I don't think it's something like Vagrant Story. If you're looking for like a graphical powerhouse of the PlayStation 1, it was great, and it looked good, but it's not the best looking game that was on the PlayStation 1 by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
And I suppose when you're looking for a new game, it doesn't, whether you're going back to previous games, for me, graphics isn't a massive issue, and it's more gameplay and things, because you're playing a game from 15, 20 years ago.
Exactly.
But for some people, I imagine that it's probably quite a big detractor from picking up sort of things like the PS1 classics. If you'd never had a PS1, you were born into the not born into, but you picked up a console and you started gaming in the HD generation, and some of these things will look awful. I mean, they will look awful. But back then it looked fantastic.
This is Minecraft is also giving me a ray of hope, precisely because it's young kids around 12, 13, i.e. kids who have only ever seen really and remember PS3 and Xbox era gaming, who are just have, because of the wonder, the weird spark that the synchronicity of things that managed to make this an explosive hit, have informed these gamers that gameplay is so much more important than graphics. It gives me hope that maybe, and you see that too with a lot of these indie games that are getting quite popular and appear on PlayStation and Xbox Live, PSN and Xbox Live, with the 8-bit, 16-bit style graphics, and they're becoming popular. And it gives me hope that that the gaming industry, like the large gaming industry, might stop concentrating on the most particles and move back to like caring about gameplay and narrative.
Definitely. I think it's almost like some of the games that we've played recently, things like Transistor, things like StarMade, which aren't the graphically they're not the most fantastic looking games in comparison to the more lifelike, real world, most or best textured games possible. But the gameplay is key and is king in those games. So yeah, I mean, there's a wide breadth of games that you can pick up based on what you want from them, I suppose. So I think we should probably end it there.
Yeah, I think so too.
So what was your favourite beer? Out of the three that you had, which would you drink again?
I think while the Indian Pale Lager was interesting, I wouldn't seek it out. If I was on a patio, I would lean towards the Belgian White by Shock Top, but I think the Rule 42 English Pale Ale, I wouldn't quite call it an English Pale Ale compared to, the pale ales I've had quite recently. But I really quite like it. I like the lingering hops. I actually like their take on it. Sort of, it's in the most positive way possible. It is a very good North American style English Pale Ale. If that makes sense.
Good.
Sort of
nice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yourself?
I think I'm gonna go with the first bit, the signature brew Vienna lager. It's a good lager. It was nice. I could drink it all day, I think. The Beavertown was great. But as a porter, it's not something that I would have, constantly. One pint, one can is enough, I think, of that. It's a good taste. It's very nice, and I'm very, very glad that I'd had it. But I think if I went out and the only two beers available with the signature brew, Vienna lager or the Beavertown, the Smog Rocket, I'd go with the Vienna lager. The Buxton Brewery, while they do some very good beers, the red raspberry rye just wasn't very good for me. And that's probably because I don't really like fruity flavoured sparkly beers.
Fair enough.
Which seems like an odd choice, but it did seem very interesting. So.
Well, interesting is what we like. In
it
games
is.
and
It is.
beer.
Exactly. So, where can people reach you, Ado, if they want to?
I'm on Twitter at the Omniarch. That's TheOmniarch. And also at our
Excellent.
Tanked Up Twitter handle, which is at @tankedup_cast, where you reach us and Alex. And how do we reach just you, Ben?
I am at Nova_47 on Twitter. You can also email us. tankedup.cast@gmail.com if you really, really want to. If you have a burning question or you don't know what the fuck Vagrant story is and you want some more information about it, just send you a Wikipedia link, basically.
I was going to say, well, let me Google that for you, link.
Exactly. Good. We have been Tanked Up. Thank you very much for listening. We shall catch you soon.
Ta.
Bye.
At the risk of ruining continuity, a 2D Sonic the Hedgehog.
You can't go with You're coming up to something different.
I want to push down on a D-pad, hammer on a button, probably an X button, and then let go and spin in a ball forwards. How hard is that?
Yeah, man. Definitely. It can't be that hard, surely. Rather than 3D, jumping, running around bullshit that Sonic seems to have become.